On This Week in Enterprise Tech, scaling out remote work has brought many questions on how to ensure better security. We'll talk about just how organizations might do this better and if VPNs are enough. Plus, digital transformations to the cloud are on the rise. Brian Curtis and I talk with a great guest, Amiram Shachar, co-founder of Spot, to take us through how the cloud is changing things and the next generation of cloud ops. Shouldn't miss it. TWiT on the set. This Week in Enterprise Tech is brought to you from LastPass Studios. Securing every access point in your company doesn't have to be a challenge. LastPass unifies access and authentication, making securing your employees simple and secure, even when they're working remotely. Check out lastpass.com/twit to learn more.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
This is TWiT, This Week in Enterprise Tech, episode 410, recorded September 11th, 2020. See Spot Cloud. This episode of This Week in Enterprise Tech is brought to you by ExpressVPN. ExpressVPN is the world's #1 rated VPN by CNET, Wired, and The Verge. For 3 extra months free with a 1-year package, go to expressvpn.com/enterprise. And by Security Scorecard. Security Scorecard helps enterprises manage digital threats with a 360-degree view of cybersecurity health through a single pane of glass. To learn more and sign up for your free account, visit securityscorecard.com/twit. And by Barracuda. Did you know that 91% of all cyber attacks start with an email? To uncover the threats hiding in your Office 365 account, get a secure and free email threat scan at barracuda.com/enterprise. Welcome to TWiT, This Week in Enterprise Tech, the show that's dedicated to you, the enterprise professional, the IT pro, and that geek who just wants to know how this world's connected. I'm your host, Louis Maresca, your guide through this big, giant world of the enterprise. But I definitely can't guide you by myself. I need to bring in the professionals, the experts in their field, starting with our very own geek in paradise. He's also the packing mogul, Mr. Brian Chee. Cheebert, how are you, my friend? Is the packing finally done?
I have an owie.
Oh, no.
Who knew packing could be dangerous? I managed to stick my fingers in to, pack something in a box, and it peeled back my cuticle and shoved something under there. So the docs decided, ooh, that's bad, and stuck a big bore needle under my cuticle to drain it. Ow. So not a happy camper today.
I bet not. Now, what's the progress of the packing? Almost done?
Yep. We are right about ready to go get the moving company back to go and do another quote. And we're trying to twist the arms on our contractor to get us final scheduling for interior paint, a few more repairs, and get a contractor in to replace the carpets. So very, very close.
Getting close. Thanks for being here, Cheebert. Well, also speaking of experts, we have our favorite security and enterprise journalist on the show today. He's the senior editor over there at Dark Reading, Mr. Curtis Franklin. Curtis, how are you, my friend?
Doing well here in the cool, crisp autumnal weather of Florida. It's about 89 degrees and starting to rain outside, so just another day in paradise. However, that makes it perfect for being here, enjoying the peace, the quiet, the air-conditioned air of TWiT.
Indeed. Now, you're gearing up for Interop. How's that going?
It's going well. We're going to be doing some crash courses on security and helping out on some other security things. We're also getting ready for Black Hat Asia, which is going ahead as a virtual event. So lots happening. In addition, there are plenty of other events that are happening in virtual senses coming up. Events from Gartner. They've got a virtual security event happening next week. There's a space and cybersecurity event next week. Just all kinds of things going on. The wicked never rest, so those of us who write about them and try to defend against them can't rest either.
Well, folks, speaking of lots happening, it's been a really busy week in the enterprise, so we should get started. Now, scaling out the remote workforce has brought many questions about how to ensure better security. We'll talk about just how organizations are tackling this, and are VPNs enough here? Plus, digital transformations to the cloud are on the rise, and the traditional techniques with DevOps need to be scaled out. Well, today we have a great guest, Amiram Shachar. He's the co-founder of Spot. He's going to take us through just how the cloud has changed things and the next generation of cloud ops. But first, it's been a busy week in the enterprise. Let's go ahead and jump into this week's blips. Now, clandestine attacks against state actors are always a sign of foreign interests, and when a third-party company calls them out, covert affairs will most likely deny their activities. That's exactly what is happening when Russia and China dismissed allegations this past week by the Microsoft Corporation that hackers linked to Moscow and Beijing were trying to spy on people. Now, the Microsoft report, which also mentioned Iran, revealed one of Biden's main campaign advisory firms had been warned by the software giant. They were being targeted by the same Russian hackers who intervened in the 2016 U.S. election. Now, the Department of Homeland Security's top cyber official, Christopher Krebs, said Microsoft's warning was consistent with earlier statements. In fact, the statements also focused on election-related targets by Russian, Chinese, and Iranian organizations. Now, this election, both campaigns have hired serious CISOs and are focused more on security. However, having a third-party firm affirm possible threats means they still have their work cut out for them.
Well, APT groups are setting their sights on Linux targets. A steady increase in advanced persistent threat, or APT groups, targeting Linux resources has prompted researchers to share the details of how these attacks and explain the misconceptions around Linux security, as well as how organizations can better protect their Linux machines. Now, much has been written about targeted attacks on Windows, which is the platform where Kaspersky, the researchers who came out with this work, finds the most APT attack tools. While Linux hasn't faced the flood of viruses, worms, and Trojans that Windows systems have seen, researchers emphasize that it's still an attractive target. Cyber attackers have PHP backdoors, rootkits, and exploit code written for Linux, but many businesses aren't very worried about it. As a result, information security departments and the security teams at software vendors are less focused on mitigations for this problem, creating a situation in which organizations have less visibility and fewer tools to protect Linux desktops, servers, and IoT devices. Kaspersky's telemetry indicates servers are the most common target of these attacks, followed by corporate IT and network devices, then workstations. APT attackers targeting Linux often use legitimate tools that are available on Linux-based servers and desktops. For example, the ability to compile code or run Python scripts, which ultimately leaves fewer traces in the logs. Now, while Linux remains less frequently targeted than Windows, researchers advise businesses to take steps to protect their environments from these kinds of attacks. Their first tip: keep a list of trusted sources for software and only install applications from official stores. Beyond this, they recommend checking network settings and avoiding unnecessary network applications.
Well, modern cybersecurity, done with properly paranoid best practices, requires meeting some pretty tough demands. Carry a physical two-factor key to plug in and authenticate yourself on a new computer. But if you lose or break that tiny piece of plastic, you could be locked out of your accounts. Used differently, totally unguessable passwords for every website without repeating them or writing them down. And even if you opt for a password manager, as you certainly should, you'll need to remember a long master password for years or risk losing access to the rest of them. Well, you could also reduce all that complexity to a single roll of 25 dice into a plastic box. This week, Stuart Schechter, a computer scientist at University of California, Berkeley, is launching DiceKeys, a simple kit for physically generating a single super secure key that can serve as the basis for creating all the most important passwords in your life for years or even decades to come. With little more than a plastic contraption that looks a bit like a boggle set and an accompanying web app to scan in the resulting dice roll, DiceKeys creates a highly random, mathematically unguessable key. You can then use that key to derive master passwords for password managers as the seed to create a U2F key for two-factor authentication, or even as a secret key for cryptocurrency wallets. Perhaps most importantly, the box of dice is designed to serve as a permanent offline key to regenerate that master password, crypto key, or U2F token if it gets lost, forgotten, or broken. So this is actually very much like a buddy of mine used to have at Silicon Graphics, and he had a bank of lava lamps in front of a webcam to create a very random number generator, and that's what you see on that screen.
Now, are you using Docker or Kubernetes? Well, it seems that both of them have been targets for hackers recently. This could be due to the increase in usage of the platforms. Now, hacker groups like Team TNT typically look for weaknesses in the platforms to exploit. Now, last April, hackers attacked containers using misconfigured Docker ports to install cryptocurrency mining malware and DDoS bots. However, the recent attacks are results of attackers using genuine cloud monitoring tools as backdoors. Now, one such tool is WeaveScope, a virtualization and monitoring tool for Docker and Kubernetes services. Now, hackers exploited this tool by mapping their victims' cloud environment and executing system commands without malicious code on the server. Now, how do they get control of such tools? Well, the crypto mining gang updated their processes to exfiltrate Amazon Web Service logins. They did this by scanning infected Docker and Kubernetes systems for sensitive credential information stored in AWS credentials and config files. Now that they have access and control with those files, they set up a new privileged container with Ubuntu's clean image in Kubernetes. Now, they then use this new image to download and execute crypto miners. They also gain root access to the server by creating a local privilege username, Hildy. The latest username is then used to connect to the server SSH and eventually install WeaveScope. Now, the backdoor is then installed, and it's a legitimate piece of software, and there's no need to actually use malware to do this. Now, how do you prevent such attacks? Well, the first thing is to ensure all Docker API endpoints are access restricted. Tools like WeaveScope and the Docker API use default ports. This is where you should actually ensure that they're closed and restricted to access, and at the firewall levels to ensure proper security. Now, unless you want your infrastructure to be bipolar and generate cash via crypto mining, it might be time to lock it down.
Well, in good news, during this pandemic time, Zoom is bringing two-factor authentication to all users. Zoom has confirmed two-factor authentication, or 2FA, will now be available for all users of the video conferencing platform, which has come under intense scrutiny as employees around the world continue to work from home to curb the spread of COVID-19. Zoom's 2FA will let users opt for authentication apps such as Google Authenticator, Microsoft Authenticator, and free OTP, which support the time-based one-time password protocol. Alternatively, users could have Zoom send a code via SMS or phone call as the second factor. The platform offers authentication methods such as SAML, OAuth, and/or passwords, which individuals can enable or disable on their accounts. Now, this marks Zoom's latest effort to improve security for all users as researchers continue to find gaps where attackers can break in. Earlier this summer, for example, the company announced plans to offer end-to-end encryption for both paid and free users. It had previously said that the E2EE encryption would only be available to paid users of the platform. It's good for everyone that they changed course.
An increasing number of law enforcement agencies, including the U.S. Secret Service, are simply buying their way into data that would ordinarily require a warrant. A new report is found, and at least one U.S. senator wants to put a stop to it. The Secret Service paid about $2 million in 2017 to 2018 to a firm called Babel Street to use its location service, LocateX, according to a document from Vice Motherboard. The contract outlines what kind of content, training, and customer support Babel Street is required to provide to the Secret Service. Now, LocateX provides location data harvested and collected from a wide variety of other apps. TechSite Protocol reported earlier this year. Well, users can draw a digital fence around an address or area, pinpoint mobile devices that were within that area and see where else those devices have traveled in the past several months, according to a report from Protocol. Agencies under the Department of Homeland Security, including Immigration and Customs Enforcement, aka ICE, and Customs and Border Protection, aka CBP, have purchased access to cell phone location activity for investigations. The Wall Street Journal reported in February. Now, in June, the Wall Street Journal also reported that the IRS purchased access to location data through commercial databases. So this is just a way to sidestep the court's requirement for warrants and niggly little details like proof. Well, just buy the data. But anyway, Senator Ron Wyden, a Democrat from Oregon, really would like to close this loophole.
Now, the summer of wayward cyber teens continues. Authorities have arrested a 16-year-old they say has launched a rudimentary distributed denial of service attack against a Miami-Dade county school. Despite using low-orbit ion cannon, really cool name, a data DDoS, a tool that most systems should have little trouble handling, the Florida team was able to disrupt remote learning in the district for several days. And the tool itself is actually easy to download. Now, they also accused the same person of orchestrating no fewer than 8 of the last 2 dozen cyber attacks that helped paralyze the first 3 days of the district's virtual classes. Now, the high school suspect's court date is set for October 8th. Now, this is just another signal or even a flare to organizations that they need to be ready for such attacks with mitigation services or just plain old better networking. Well, folks, that does it for the blips. Next up, the bytes. But before we get to the bytes, we have to thank a really great sponsor of This Week in Enterprise Tech, and that's ExpressVPN. Now, when I travel for business, I need to wait to make sure that my data is safe no matter the internet connection I'm using. My question to you is, what better way to ensure your security and privacy than using ExpressVPN? Now, when you use the bathroom, you close the door behind you, right? You don't want random passerbys looking in on you. So why would you let people look in on you when you're online? Using the internet without ExpressVPN is like going to the bathroom and not closing the door. Now, did you know that the internet service provider like Comcast or Verizon knows every single website you visit? Well, what's worse than that is they can sell this information to ad companies, tech giants who will use your data to target you. ExpressVPN puts a stop to this. It creates a secure, encrypted tunnel between the device and internet so that you can be online and your online activity can't be seen by anyone. I use ExpressVPN on all my devices. It works on everything, phones, tablets, laptops, even installing on routers. So everyone who shares your Wi-Fi can still be protected even if they don't have ExpressVPN. Now, the best part here is using ExpressVPN is as easy as closing the bathroom door. That's it. Just do it. You should just fire up the app and click one button, and then you're protected. ExpressVPN is the world's #1 rated VPN by CNET Wired, The Verge, and countless others. So if you're like me and believe your online activity is your business, secure yourself by visiting expressvpn.com/enterprise today. Use my exclusive link, expressvpn.com/enterprise, and you'll get an extra 3 months free. That's expressvpn.com/enterprise. And we thank ExpressVPN for their support of This Week in Enterprise Tech. Well, folks, it's now time for the bytes, and this is an interesting one because it's kind of related. Security guru Bruce Schneier famously coined the phrase security theater to describe a paradox that organizations live in when it comes to security. They take actions such as purchasing complicated and expensive cyber defenses to feel safer, right? However, Bruce thinks that security is both a feeling and a reality. In his words, quote, when people are scared, they need something done that will make them feel safe, even if it doesn't truly make them safer. Interesting, right? Well, enterprise security often falls prey to the same reflexive approach to new and unknown threats. There is perhaps no better way or example to this as the adoption of a lot of VPNs in organizations. Now, for a time, VPNs did improve security, and they do. And it actually does help hide your browsing and all that. But there are designs that doesn't always meet all the requirements of the modern enterprise. Now, 25 years ago, VPNs were the cutting-edge technology of the day. They provided users with relatively straightforward ways to securely access your data or your network resources. But despite the explosive innovation these past 2 decades, VPN remains synonymous with secure remote access for an outsized portion of today's populace. But the current pandemic has forced millions of people of workers and to log in from home, making it incumbent for CISOs to provide remote access without compromising security. Now, this particular article has some interesting call-outs here about VPNs, some food for thought. First one being, VPNs, a lot of them out there are plagued with vulnerabilities. Now, in June, the NSA issued a fresh warning that VPNs could be vulnerable to attack if not correctly secured. Now, they urged organizations to patch a critical flaw which would allow attackers to take control of a device without a password and gain access to the rest of the network. Now, VPNs are also complex. They're expensive, and they can be brittle. For example, in the MIL or .gov firewalls, approximately 80% of the tens of thousands of firewall rules are associated with VPN management. So sometimes it's hard to make sure that those holes are plugged or not plugged so VPNs can work. Now, VPNs have become highly attractive targets for bad actors and nation states. So that's another interesting call out of VPNs. Now, to me, personally, I do agree VPN is not the only thing you need to do here, especially for remote workers. But it is a good thing. Now, Chee, I want to send this over to you. It's not a silver bullet, right? But there are reasons. There's reasons to look outside of VPN, right? Because you want to make sure that you're adding layers into your networking, especially for remote workers. What are some of the other things that people can do?
Well, my favorite analogy is using an armored car to move the crown jewels across town, but stopping short in a bad part of town and continuing the trip in a subcompact car. Where's the ends of your VPNs? A VPN is only safe when you're in the pipe. So what happens when you go and do something silly like a corporation does a VPN and it drops you into the trusted area of your corporate firewall and you don't look at anything else? Too many people have VPNs that are just dropping right into a trusted area of their network, and they're not treating it as a separate zone. Remember, we're all pretty much in agreement. Perimeter-based security is dead. Say it again. Perimeter-based security is dead. You need to think at least by zones. And keep in mind, if you're VPNing to multiple sites, that's multiple places where you could be popping out without any extra examination. So that's one of the big issues that I have with a lot of people that think VPNs are a magic bullet. They're not. You need to go and have it look. All my VPNs that I try to implement pop out into a different zone, completely isolated from the rest of my enterprise network, so that I have another layer so I can have IDS, IPS, and additional firewall rules to treat it as a separate zone. Lots of things. Your VPNs can be great. They can be secure. But if you're using a VPN appliance or you're using an internal VPN or something like that, and you're not using a real certificate, not so good.
Right.
Anyway, I agree with the article in that, yes, VPNs can be complex, they can be expensive, can be brittle. Especially if you start adding single sign-on to those. But you need to do things that make sense. Don't treat it as a trusted connection because you don't know what's happening at the far end. Always treat it as a different zone at the very least. Use real certificates, and for God's sakes, change the passwords on a regular basis, especially if you're playing SSO and that's an external way into your network.
Right. Now, Curtis, you live and read this stuff. Are organizations leaning too much on VPNs? What else is being done here?
Well, I think you do get some, especially small organizations, that run into trouble when they decide that the VPN is everything they need to do. Just set up a VPN, and especially a VPN that the employee has to launch. And once you have launched that VPN, then everything's copacetic. And as Brian said, that's not nearly the case. A VPN can be important, especially if you are working from someplace with public Wi-Fi. In those cases, you should absolutely have a VPN. But the VPN needs to be properly configured. A part of a comprehensive security plan, and it needs to be used reliably, which means you need to have your policies for configuration of endpoints in place. You need to have users using the VPN every single time they log in from someplace that is not a trusted network. And perhaps most important, you should make sure that the VPN is not something that malware authors can use as a tool for lateral movement within the organization. One other thing, remember if you're going to be using VPNs that you should have them on your mobile devices too. Once your phone or tablet hooks up to a Wi-Fi network at one of these public locations, the vulnerabilities to it exist through the Wi-Fi, just like the vulnerabilities exist for laptops.
Right. Yeah, I definitely agree with both of you. I think I definitely agree with the article as well. It just can't be the only thing for organizations. But I know for most users, like you're saying, when you're remotely working, you're working from a hotel room or from the hotel lobby or or for somewhere out like at a coffee shop or something, using a VPN should definitely be done. It should be like the lowest layer of defense that you throw on there right away to ensure that at least your traffic is safe. But Chee, I want to throw this back to you one more time. The interesting thing here is, obviously, if a device is already compromised, VPNs are useless, right? I think they don't really. I mean, obviously, a person can already just use the VPN to connect out to kind of remote out or from the device that's already been compromised. Is there something else here that organizations should be doing to ensure that? Oh, wait, like obviously VPN is required. We should use one, but in the same sense, we should also be protecting the device itself, what people are downloading, what people are installing, other things, other services like that.
You bet. I'm a big fan of mobile device policy systems. Make sure you have a up-to-date antivirus, anti-malware. Don't let someone even connect if it's not up to date. Don't even let someone connect if they've turned it off. VPNs can't be the one and only answer. It has to be part of a total solution. You have to have, God forbid you should be running an ancient version. You shouldn't, if you're in enterprise, you shouldn't let anyone come in with, say, something like Windows 7. There's a lot of things that can be done. Windows 7 can be made secure, but darn, there's a lot of work involved with that. So you need to have a lot of other things in your solution. You need to have the stream of data. You should be looking at an IDS IPS for the VPN. Don't just use the IDS IPS for things going in and out of your network. Use it also for the VPN stream. So layers, just because you're going over a VPN doesn't mean your SaaS solution can be over unencrypted HTTP. HTTPS going over a VPN is just another layer. So Sadly, there's way too much talent in the hacker community, and they're going to go and try and peel apart the pieces, make them work for it.
Right. Yeah, I think that's a great tip. I think, a lot of services out there, MDM, mobile device management, they do, if you register devices on there or force your people in your organization to use these things on your devices, they do health checks, they do OS checks, make sure your device is up to date, make sure there's no compromise, there's no ports open, there's no, services that are running that are, that shouldn't be there. It installs some security devices, it even enables VPNs and so on. So I think I definitely agree that there's definitely work out there for organizations to do. They should just not lean on one particular thing in hopes that it's going to be that silver bullet. Well, folks, that does it for the Bytes. Next up, we have a really great guest to drop some knowledge on the TWiT riot. Before we get to the guest, we have to thank another great sponsor of This Week in Enterprise Tech, and that is Security Scorecard. Well, with all the organizations I work with, I can tell you they're always looking for ways to audit themselves and grade cyber risk, especially with the way the current climate is and the ever-changing security landscape. Now, Security Scorecard is the global leader in cybersecurity ratings and the only service with 1.5 million companies continuously rated. Now, their mission is to empower every organization with collaborative security intelligence because you are only as secure as those you work with. Now, like we say here on TWiT, you're only as secure as your weakest link, and that's your users. Now, Security Scorecard helps enterprises manage digital threats with a 360-degree view of cybersecurity health through a single pane of glass. And they have a patented rating technology used by over 1,000 organizations for multiple use cases. Now listen to these. You can evaluate your organization's cybersecurity risk by using data-driven, objective, and continuously evolving metrics that provide visibility into your organization's information security control weaknesses with their Security Scorecard rating system. Now you can instantly view cybersecurity posture by any third-party vendors, partners, or suppliers to help you evaluate risk in your ecosystem. It can also allow them to find and fix cybersecurity risks and vulnerabilities across their externally facing digital footprint with their third-party risk management service. Now, they also use for board and executive level reporting and in the insurance space for cyber insurance underwriting. Now, Security Scorecard is always working for you behind the scenes. They have non-intrusively collected data from publicly available feeds across the internet for an outside-in perspective. Now, the data is used to calculate scores across 10 key risk factor groups, such as patching cadence, application security, DNS health, network security, and even endpoint security. Now, an A to F grading scale helps companies actually easily understand and continuously monitor their cybersecurity posture of any organization. Companies with a C, D, or even an F grade are 5 times more likely to be breached. Great scoring here. Now, Security Scorecard also has Atlas. It's the service. It's that leading cybersecurity questionnaire and validation solution that's out there. It cuts through the questionnaire noise as you can find out your score to make your business cyber secure. Now, Atlas's centralized platform leverages machine learning to automate the cybersecurity questionnaire exchange process for senders and receivers, make it 2 times faster and more accurate and secure than ever before. Now, Atlas is the only platform in the market that instantly maps cybersecurity rating data to individual responses, providing a true 360-degree view of risk. Now, cut through the questionnaire cycle in half, save hours and with 20-plus industry standard questionnaires or their custom questionnaire wizard. Collaborate easily and secure with your team and third parties. The Security Scorecard believes that every business has the right to own its own cybersecurity rating. They were awarded Best Product in Security Ratings by 2020 SE Magazine Awards. I hope you've been listening because Security Scorecard is something all organizations should be using to assess their risk. The combined power of Security Scorecard ratings and Atlas gives organizations a 360-degree view of cybersecurity for any company in the world. Sign up for your free account by visiting securityscorecard.com/twit. Check out the score of your business and up to 5 others. To learn more and sign up for your free account, visit securityscorecard.com/twit. And we thank Security Scorecard for their support of This Week in Enterprise Tech. Well, folks, as my favorite part of the show, we actually get to bring in a guest to drop some knowledge on the TWiT, right? And today we have Amiram Shachar. He's the co-founder of Spot. Welcome to the show, Amiram.
Hey, thank you for having me. How are you?
I'm doing great. Now, our audience loves to hear people's origin stories. Can you maybe take us on a short journey through tech and what brought you to Spot?
Yeah, so it's actually a really interesting story. I served in the military in Israel for about 7 years, and my job in the military was actually running several really huge data centers. I was leading operations in the data center for all of the military. We're kind of the cloud unit. And after I left the military, I was a student for computer science, and during my last semester, I was running a thesis to get my degree, and the thesis was all about how to use efficient cloud resources, because I came from IT background, and this work that I did as part of the thesis, I kind of researched how to use spot instances, which for the audience who are not aware of what spot instances are, is basically cheap compute resources in the cloud providers allow you to buy, but there is no guarantee for these resources because it's based on first come, first serve or spare capacity that they have at any single moment. So I was researching that area of how can you use these cheap resources but still get the high availability that you need as an enterprise. And that research very soon became Spot. So that's the story behind.
Very cool. Very cool. Now, we've talked a lot about DevOps, Cloud Ops. It's a pretty big topic for organizations as they rapidly transform and look for ways to management. Now, to me, the success of the cloud computing is not defined by organizations' ability to get workloads done. It's really the ability to solve real problems over time. Now, how are you seeing DevOps evolve, and how is cloud changing things for organizations?
So first of all, I think that cloud, that's probably we're like living some like really interesting moment in history, because cloud is, to me, is the biggest revolution in history since like the Industrial Revolution. If you think about it, cloud just makes it super easy for like $1 per hour to get like infinite amount of unlimited amount of compute, storage, network, machine learning, access to any algorithms that you need, just like so this is like a really big thing that's happening in our like day-to-day life right now. And I think what cloud is basically doing to people is like really accelerating and helping the developers to be more, get more done. As a developer myself, I can tell you this is, if I can sum up in like one thing, what cloud is doing.
Makes sense. So, obviously organizations are applying and starting to evolve with DevOps. They're essentially looking for ways to make sure that development and operations come together. But like you said, cloud adoption is really scaling out things to the nth degree. What is some of the challenges organizations are running into when it comes to that?
So I think there are several amount of problems and challenges, but I think it's like it's a moving target. Like if you look like 4 years ago, I think the main issue was complexity and security. Like people like needed to get like, how is cloud working? Is it going to be better than what we have right now? Is it going to be secured? That was like the main two problems. I remember like 5 years ago when I was talking with customers to use our software, like the problem was security and complexity. And then right now, I think people have realized that like cloud is probably more secure than what they have on-prem. And right now is about less like complexity, but I think like it's becoming like second priority. But right now, the biggest thing is cost. Is cloud going to be cheaper than what I have? How is cloud going to give me the return of investment? So I think like today, what like the problems I'm hearing is like, how do I get cloud right? And how do I get cloud at the right price?
Right, that makes sense. Yeah, I think the organizations are really struggling here because they're looking to move applications to the cloud. They're moving to move their services to the cloud, and it's really hard for them to manage these things and do it securely, do it continuously. I think that's one of the big challenges here. So when we talk a lot about cloud ops, what is that bringing to the table that enables organizations to continuously do this reliably?
So I think cloud ops, when you say cloud ops, to me, like I'm seeing like multiple things that are derived from the word cloud ops. To me, cloud ops, it's the persona who cares about cloud. It used to be the IT ops. Right now, it's the cloud ops. And cloud ops to me has like maybe three main roles. One role that I see for cloud ops is DevOps. Under cloud ops is how you build infrastructure, how you ship code to production. The second role is the FinOps, is how you optimize your span. How do you analyze your span? How do you analyze your usage? How do you know what's running in your cloud? And we see that this is like becoming a new role, the FinOps role under cloud ops. And then the third one is SecOps, is how do I get security? How do I get governance in an ever-changing dynamic environment such as cloud? And all these three things under cloud ops, like I think the main thing is, as you mentioned, is how do I do all of that continuously? How do I build infrastructure, ship code continuously? How do I monitor, optimize continuously? How do I secure continuously? Because it's not a one-time job anymore.
Right. So I think one thing I want to talk about is redundancy is, again, another important thing for cloud ops and cloud operations and this whole process. What is something that Spot is doing here to help with all of this? What kind of services are they providing? What kind of services and applications are they providing here?
So at Spot, what we're doing basically to help here is we're looking at we call it the traditional stack of CI/CD, which is how developers and DevOps are taking code and making this code through continuous integration and artifact, and then how they're shipping this code to production. And then we just take that CI/CD. We don't want to change it. We don't want to manipulate it. What we want to do is basically to extend it. The way that we extend it is from CI/CD to something that we call CI/CD/CO, which is continuous integration, continuous delivery, and then continuous optimization. An optimization can be performance, optimization can be cost, and optimization can also be security, if you think about that. So that's what Spot helps. It's a software that sits and connects with the continuous delivery tools and basically helps the customer once the code is shipped to production and working in the cloud, code and how to run this infrastructure in the most available, efficient, secured, and highly available way.
So if I get this right, so basically after all of these things, after the dev organizations, the operations organizations, they've deployed these things. Now they want to make sure that they're healthy, they're reliable, they don't need servicing, that kind of thing. And so this service will actually help organizations monitor that continuously over time. And what about actions? Can you perform actions and events based off of some of the things that you're seeing from the analytics?
Yeah. So exactly as you said, the nicest thing that it actually connects with the existing developer tools or existing DevOps tools. For example, Jenkins. For example, another example, Spinnaker. Another example is Terraform, like how you build infrastructure with Terraform. So like Spot intersect exactly there. And then what it does, just because it intersects with on the API level, so not only that it can listen, monitor, get all the insights and information, it can also act. And for example, I'll give you a really, something that most of our customers are doing is something called compute auto shaping, which is you're getting a compute, like usually when you want to run an application. So, and I'll ask you what type of server, what size of server you would need. So you're probably going to scratch your head and say, oh, I need a large server or I need a medium server. And what happened in the cycle of continuous optimization with Spot is that you go with the server you think you need. And then what Spot does is actually sees, what the application actually consumes here, what the container actually runs here. And then based on the specification, on the next time that there is a scale up or scale down operation in the cloud, it will actually choose the right server, the right shape, size, model that the application needs. And that basically, it's combining analytics and automation together to provide it.
Makes sense. I think that's the key factor. A lot of organizations forget that they'll have alerting systems, they'll have analytics, but then actually consuming them, ingesting them, and performing actions and operations on them really helps, like you said, automate things to ensure more reliability. When it comes to, so it said scale out was one of those things that helps, especially with reserve resources, these types of resources where they're using that you don't always get that reliability. What else comes from the analytics? Is there any other, for organizations to monitor whether a code deployment was successful and what to do with that, or are there anything else that comes with that kind of service provider?
So it's actually when you sit in that funnel or tunnel between the operations and the applications. So it's I would call it it's a Pandora box, but on the positive side, because you're getting a lot of information you can do things with. So for example, from cost perspective, but also just because you're managing the servers and you see what's happening on the load balancer and you're seeing what's happening on the disks, you can basically track you can close loops. Hey, what's happening on the networking and how does it affect my load balancer and how does it affect my I/O to the disk? So there is many dimensions that you can solve for and aim to optimize for. And the more that applications becoming more, I would call it abstracted. So containers right now, and on top of containers, we have service mesh. So you can just see more and more and more and make decisions. So that's the beauty of this Pandora box.
Right. Well, when we come back, we have a lot more to talk about. And of course, my co-hosts are chomping at the bit here to ask some questions, so we'll definitely get to them. But before we get to all that, we do have to thank another great sponsor of This Week in Enterprise Tech, and that is Barracuda. Now, you may have heard of advanced threat protection, especially as part of the current climate. It's something you want to have for your organization. Now, Barracuda is that solution. They provide cloud-enabled, enterprise-grade security solutions that protect email, networks, data, and applications. Think about it. Suddenly you have dozens, hundreds, and maybe even thousands of employees working remotely, each one of them getting tons of emails every day. Now, email is a classic technology that makes your users vulnerable. 91% of all cyber attacks start in an email. Spear phishing, ransomware, account takeover, conversation hijacking. Multiply that by how many employees you have times how many emails they get. One click on the wrong email can cost you money, customers, and even your reputation. And Barracuda researchers have seen a steady increase in the number of coronavirus-related spear phishing attacks since January, and they've observed a recent spike of a 667% in this type of attack since the end of February. Now, get the protection you need for your company with Barracuda Total Email Protection. It includes all this. Listen to this. All-in-one email security, backup, and archiving, AI-based protection for spear phishing, account takeover, and business email compromise. In fact, it also has an automated incident response system that gives you options to quickly and efficiently address attacks. In fact, it has security awareness training as well to help you educate your workforce so your employees can be the first in line of the defense against attacks. Now, we've covered this a couple times here on TWiT, but in the current climate, the bad guys are targeting people using social engineering techniques. They're impersonating organizations like the UN World Health Organization and the U.S. Center for Disease Control and Prevention to trick users into opening malicious emails. Now, users access the malicious coded site, and that's it. Their devices and now the attackers. Now it's time to take back control of your security. Ensure the safety and security of your business with Barracuda. To uncover the threats hiding in your inbox, get a secure, free email threat scan of your Office 365 account risk-free at barracuda.com/enterprise. That's barracuda.com/enterprise. Barracuda. Your journey secured. And we thank Barracuda for their support of This Week in Enterprise Tech. Well, folks, we'll be talking with Amiram Shachar. He's the co-founder of Spot, and we're talking about how to handle cloud ops and continuous optimization. But I also did want to bring my co-host back in, starting with Mr. Brian Chee.
Okay, it's all about hybridization. When I first started playing in the cloud world, it was on-prem and a single cloud. That's not the market anymore. I'm starting to see more and more organizations that are multiple clouds. You know, one thing might be in Azure, another might be in AWS. And the result is an information overload. So my great hope, whenever I talk to someone that's telling me about cloud analytics, is when is AI going to start helping me with this information overload? Does Spot have something to help me? Because I'm buried under cloud data.
So I agree with that. I think I'm also seeing that pattern. Organizations are using multiple clouds. And by the way, the main reason that we see customers using multiple clouds, it's not for portability, it's not for cost. It's mainly for the versatility of like services they need to use. So for example, they'll see like an Azure service that they need for a specific application that they have that works best with their application, they'll use it. Or they see like a Google service like BigQuery that like they like it better, so they'll use this. And then they'll use Amazon for compute. So we see that versatility of like using multiple cloud as strategy for just getting more out of cloud providers. Spot is not like sitting in the middle, like, and just like, you know, Kayak or, Expedia helping customers like navigate across the providers. It basically, once you chose one, we're going to help you to maximize your investment in that particular cloud. And still like give you that, you know, single pane of glass of like when you're using multiple clouds.
Thank you. That's pretty awesome. Yeah. I don't know about you, but the cloud has a promise. And I keep seeing advertisements and so forth that from all the different vendors and saying, oh, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. It's like, okay, that's all cool, but I've got information overload. Do you have suggestions? Can Spot go and help me provide that single pane of glass, but also give me a better handle on managing my resources? You know, your name comes from Spot instances, and Spot instances give me a nice deep set of instruments into my cloud infrastructure. But what are the best practices? You know, you can take the best instrument on earth and make it do a horrible job with bad expectations. So what kinds of expectations, what kind of preparation should a company do before they dive into this?
Brian, I think it was a very smart comment about, you can take the best weapon not to use it well. And then so what's out of it. And I think this is like how we're shaping Spot. And basically with all this notion of cloud ops, to us, cloud ops is like, what are the best practices and tools you need to have in order to be like excellent in like using cloud. So today we're starting to do it with like, modern workloads, like containers, microservices that you use in the cloud. So we're going to tell you exactly how to use them, how to deploy them well, how to scale them well. We're going to let you know if you're like not in the right zone of like how you operate them. This is something that, the more people are using more modern applications and less lift and shift to the cloud, it's becoming easier for providers like us to give those recommendations. But that's definitely a North Star for us. So I agree. That's a problem today. And I can tell you more than that sometimes our biggest competitor, it's not like our competitors. It's like lack of knowledge. It's like when you interact with customers and you tell them like, hey, do you need X? Like, no, we're good. We're already doing it well. But like, if you're really going to open the books, you're going to see that like, oh, the practices are not there. And I completely agree with your comment. And hopefully this is something that over time will bring a better solution for.
Thanks, Schubert. I'll also throw to Curt. Curt?
I appreciate it. And, my first question gets to something that's very basic. When I talk to people around the industry, it seems that everyone wants to provide additional visibility or complete visibility or total visibility or some visibility into the enterprise infrastructure. My question is, why is this so hard? I know from talking both to CIOs and to vendors that often companies underestimate the number of components they have, the number of cloud services they have, by nearly an order of magnitude. What makes it so hard, and what made it a problem that you wanted to tackle?
So just to support your case, some like numbers, like the visibility space, it's a pretty large space with huge TAM. Look at like, there are like multiple, not unicorns, more than unicorns, multi-billion-dollar companies like sitting on that visibility, area, like Datadog and Splunk and New Relic and Opti and Dynatrace. A lot of companies try to solve the very same problem of visibility. And the reason is I think that like cloud is so dynamic. And the way that people are using, like, if you talk to like 10 different companies, how they're using cloud, you're probably going to hear 12 different answers. And different teams, they want to rule their cloud different. And they want to deploy their applications in a slightly different way. And they are doing things in a slightly different, on their own way, in their own style. And that's why at the end of the day, organization need to understand what's going on there. It's not an easy job. And it's not anyone's job to do that. If you think about it, your job is just to use the cloud to get more work done. But at the end of the day, the visibility, it's just like oxygen right now in the cloud. And I think that like, if you look at the cloud providers, like none of them have provided like a solution which is not like, let alone like good enough, like something that you can, you can control like multiple clouds. So that's what I think that organizations just using cloud differently, different teams within the organization using the cloud in their own way. The amount of resources increasing every day and changing every day. So if you don't have visibility, you're basically, I wouldn't say lost, but I would say that you will get lost very soon, very quickly.
Okay, so as you said, there are a lot of companies out there tackling this problem in slightly different ways. So with Spot, is your big differentiator the use of artificial intelligence to bring some order and rationality to the results that come back from the visibility, or are you taking a slightly different view into the data for your visibility? Where is it that you're actually making your difference for an approach to the visibility issue?
So our differentiation coming from our automation capabilities. So we believe that like in order to achieve our automation, so you need to have visibility, and you need to have a team that monitors this visibility, understands the insight, take actions, and then getting into like the results we're bringing to customer. Think about like the cycle from like understanding that you have a problem and tasking your team with solving that problem and actually solving that problem. So like, and that's exactly the differentiation of Spot. So Spot is basically bringing you the right instruments of like what pricing model to use in the cloud, what servers type to use in the cloud. But basically what it does, it automates the process. So like the way that we're solving it, we're not solving the entire visibility problem. I think this is like, maybe over time we'll solve more of that. But like right now we're just like focusing on how to use automation to solve like specific problems that like otherwise, if you don't have this automation in place, it would either be unoptimized very poorly, or you would have to have deep visibility and teams behind that, if that makes sense.
Right. Well, Amiram, thank you so much for being here. The time flies when you're having fun. We're running a little bit low on time. I do want to give you a chance to maybe tell the folks at home where their organization can go to learn more about Spot and the Cloud Ops movement.
Yeah, so first of all, Lou, just to you, I must say you're like a great presenter for your sponsors. So good job. Your sponsors should be very thankful to how you present them. So I enjoyed listening to that. And second, anybody who wants to hear more from us and like having some challenges in cloud and just want to like learn a little bit more, just go to spot.io and just ping us there, and we'll be very happy to hop on a call and help wherever we can. And thank you for having me. It was definitely fun. I learned a lot, and I'm gonna be probably a listener to this podcast. So thank you.
Thanks again. Appreciate you being here. Well, folks, before we sign out today, we wanted to take a moment to remember. Now, it was 19 years ago today, the U.S. was hit with a terrible tragedy. Now, I was actually working at Anheuser-Busch at the time as a systems control engineer when the news actually hit the TV sets. And then reality kind of set on me. I was stunned. I was disbelieved of the images, of the terrible images that were coming out of New York and other places. And I remember thinking about my uncle who worked there, and was he safe, and all of his friends and coworkers that worked there. Luckily, he did get out just a couple hours before the whole event. But again, it was one of those days that you kind of remember. You remember all the people that were affected, victims of the tragedy, and of course all the heroes that helped save many lives. Curtis, Cheebert, where were you during that event?
I was actually getting ready to open the Interop Atlanta trade show, and I had a dozen of my students with me. And trust me, I had a lot of freaked out parents calling my cell phone saying, "What's up? When is my son or daughter coming home?" Also, at the same time, I was watching the Pentagon on fire and thinking to myself, I was going to need to go and beg, borrow, steal a car and drive to Washington, D.C., because that wedge of the Pentagon was where my office was. And I was thinking I had lost my entire team. So it was a tough day. You know, it was a big change in the way we did things. But on the bright side, I have never seen America pull together quite the way it did in the days after 9/11. And I think it actually did an awful lot towards gluing the country together. And the amount of people that volunteered for military service or other types of service to help out was stunning. And I would like to say that it's been 19 years. We're probably going to see a really big remembrance next year when we hit the 20th anniversary. But I don't want us to forget that there are people that don't like us very much. And, you know, that's fine too, because America is a really great place to live. I think it's advanced citizenship. You have to be able to work at it. And you need to also remember that the freedom you have also means that the person standing on the street corner burning a flag in protest has the same rights you have. So I think it's time for Curt. Where were you on 9/11?
Well, interestingly enough, Brian and I were in the same building when 9/11 occurred. We didn't know each other at that point. Brian was in the Network Operations Center. I was running the Best of Interop awards and had set up the judges' room. I had driven up to Atlanta from my then home in Gainesville and had taken a whole bunch of network equipment because we needed to have everything so that the judges could have good connectivity. And at that point, the very first thing that I did when I set up a network was to ping CNN just to see if I could reach the outside world. I pinged CNN and saw that an airplane had hit one of the towers. And then things weren't normal for a long time after that. Many of my colleagues were from New York at that time, and I remember there were several who had kids at New York University who were not able to reach their kids for a couple of days. It was not a happy time. I'm grateful for all of the acts of courage and grace that happened after that. It's a terrible shame that it happened, but as Brian said, I think any of us who were adults when that happened, that is one of a small handful of touchstone events where everyone knows where they were when they first heard the news.
I agree. Well, it's definitely one of those events that have changed not just the U.S., but I think the entire world, and it will definitely be burned into my memory from time to come. So thank you guys for the reminiscing. Well, folks, you've done it again. You sat through another hour of the Best Dang Enterprise podcast in the universe. So tune your device to TWiT. I want to thank everyone who makes this show possible, especially to my co-host. Starting with our very own Mr. Brian Chee. He's the Geek in Paradise. Cheebert, what are you doing outside of maybe packing in the coming weeks, and where can people find you online?
Packing. packing and more packing. Getting very close to moving to Orlando. I will answer Chicken Head's question. Yes, my guys were okay. Apparently someone pulled rank on them and told them they had to move back to their old quarters. Took a few days, but I finally managed to get patched in to the DISN and found out what happened, and that my guys and girls actually were taking care of helping the recovery process.
Great. Thank you, Cheever. Well, of course, we also like Mr. Curtis Franklin. He's the senior editor at Dark Reading. Curtis, what's going on for you in the coming weeks, and where can people find you and all your work?
Well, still lots going on at Dark Reading, and I'm writing both for primary Dark Reading and for the edge of Dark Reading. So had a 101 on next-gen firewalls that went up. Also had a piece that's just gone up about lessons that the security folks can take from the DevOps discipline. So lots of interesting stuff, more like both of those coming. And as Lou mentioned, we do have Interop coming up. So take a look at interop.com. Lots of fascinating things and some great learning to be had at the conferences between now and the end of the year.
Fantastic. Thank you guys for being here. I wouldn't want to do this show without you guys. Well, folks, I also thank you as well. You are the person who drops in each and every week to watch and listen to our show to get your enterprise goodness. And we want to make it easy for you to watch and listen to catch up on your enterprise news. So go to our show page right now, twit.tv/TWiT. There you'll find all the amazing back episodes, the show notes, co-host information, guest information, and links of the stories we do during the show. But more importantly, next to those videos there, you'll get those helpful subscribe and download links. Click on those because that helps support our show by getting your audio version or your video version of your choice on any one of your devices. And of course, on any one of your podcast applications as well, because we're on all of them: Podcatcher, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, you name it. Subscribe. And of course, it's really the best way to stay on top of your enterprise and IT news. So go ahead and subscribe. Now, after you subscribe, impress your friends with the gift of TWiT, because you know what? We talk about a ton of subjects on here, a lot of technology subjects that a lot of people will find interesting, so you might as well share with them as well. Now, if you've already subscribed and you're available on the days that we do the show, 1:30 p.m. Pacific on Friday, we do the show live. You can check that out at live.twit.tv. Come see how the pizza's made. Come see behind the scenes, all the banter and all that fun stuff that we do here at TWiT. So definitely come check it out at live.twit.tv. And of course, if you're going to watch the show live, you might as well jump into the amazing chat room. We got some really great stuff from them today, really great conversations and topics. That's at irc.twit.tv. But you know what? You're not always available for the live show to be in the chat room. But there's still a great conversation happening 24/7 over at our twit.community website. That's twit.community. Check it out. There's a 24/7 discussion about content, technology. All the hosts are out there. All the co-hosts are out there. It's a really great discussion, a great place to be if you can't make it and be live. So after you subscribe, go check out the twit.community website. Now, remember, you can always follow me, twitter.com/LouMM. There I post all my enterprise tidbits, sometimes my grumpy ramblings. And, of course, I have really great conversations with people like you. And, of course, I also post a little bit about what I do at Microsoft, about the Office Platform Group and how we can make you and have you and your organization customize your Office experience to make it more productive for you. I want to thank everyone who makes the show possible, especially to Leo and Lisa. They continue to support us each and every week doing This Week in Enterprise Tech, and we couldn't do the show without them. So thank you to all their support. Of course, thank you to all the engineers at TWiT and all the staff members. Of course, I also want to thank Mr. Brian Chee one more time, because he's not only our co-host, but he's also our tireless producer. He does all the bookings and the plannings for the show. We really couldn't do the show without him. So thank you again to Chee. Now, before we have to sign out, I want to thank our editor, Victor, of course. And of course, I also want to thank our TD for today, John. Hey, John. So what's going on over there at TWiT? Is it's still smoky in the area? How's everything going?
You know, the sky is not blood red anymore. It's gotten kind of gray, but you know, the ash is falling every day. I wipe off my car, and in the morning it's covered in ash again.
Hopefully things will clear out soon for you guys over there. So thanks for being here. Thanks for your support. Well, until next time, I'm Louis Maresca, just reminding you, if you want to know what's going on in the enterprise, just keep TWiT.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? I am Ant Pruitt, host at TWiT TV. Got a question for you. Have you gotten tired of how bad your photos are looking every time you post them to Instagram? Better yet, have you gotten yourself a new camera and you can't quite figure out why the images just don't look that good? Well, I have a solution for you. It's my show, Hands On Photography. Each and every Thursday, I sit down and share different tips and tricks that are going to help make you a better photographer and a better post processor. So subscribe today at twit.tv/hop to learn more.